the first question is, what do you think? Can we somehow predict the crisis and predict the pandemic, which is happening now?
Crisis and pandemic are, disruptions which comes once in a while, and it is very hard to predict. What can we predict is, how do we build capabilities to meet the challenges of this pandemic, these disruption, by building a very good business continuity plan and a very strong scenario planning, which can give us indications as well as resilient planning systems.
Okay, and so I see that your workshop, Demand Planning and Forecasting Supply Chain, will provide such tools and understanding to the participants. Am I right?
Yes, you're very right, because what we will be doing in the workshop is essentially a basic of understanding forecasting, but moving away from forecasting, which is highly deterministic, which is commonplace in normal times, to a resilient-based demand planning system with some amount of understanding of probability distribution as well as scenario planning. And this would really be a strong focus after understanding what planning is all about. And we'll also say why these are important elements within planning systems, which have to be a part of our predicting the future, as future is getting more and more disrupted, not by technology as we talked about earlier, but by natural events. And how do we really bring those capabilities into you to see that you can build up a planning system which stands tall during disruptions and such natural disasters?
You tell us that during the workshop we will discuss 8 variants of forecasting techniques, and so in the end people will get these 8 techniques and they can use them practically after the workshop.
Yes, see, there are certain 3 or 4 techniques that are essential during pandemic or before pandemic, in normal times, and after pandemic in post correction times. These are nothing but we need to understand what is my mean demand, what is the variance of this demand, how do I understand the forecastability of the item, because if you see post-pandemic, people were not forecasting, and rightly so, because the past data is not reflective of what's happening now. So how do you understand those forecastability using certain statistical tools like covariance and others, and planning to understand that what part of your particular growth, suppose there is a growth in the next 6 months across the globe, there is a data there, how has data changed, how has composition of consumer baskets changed, how have new channels emerged, how do you use this data to forecast the nearby future, and also the tactical planning, which is mid and long range planning like the SNOP and IBP.
I understand. I understand that companies who use demand planning approach, and risk management, they were less vulnerable, and more prepared to the crisis, which are usually actually crises, they happen all the time. What can you just name a couple of things that people can use within risk management, or some, I don't know, procurement techniques or supply chain techniques that can help them? Maybe.
Right. When you're looking at planning today, though we will be focusing on demand planning, but we'll also bring the element of end-to-end supply chain. Now, demand planning essentially defines your production. Production requires bill of material. Now, bill of material has its own bill of materials. That bill of material will have its own bill of material based on which procurement is done. So procurement is not done at one particular tier 1. it is done at tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 50, tier N, depending upon whether you are automobile or you are a FMCG, this thing. Now the challenge is, like for instance, a lot of us believed that understanding tier 1 and tier 2 was good enough as a resilience for procurement planning, as a part of the larger planning. But what you see is that as a demand plan change, your procurement needs to change. And if your procurement needs to change, then how do you understand what is lying at what place in the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? Now there is a need to map all these tier 1 to tier 3, because you find during the Japanese tsunami, everything was right, tier 1, tier 2, and which you bought 98% of the material from different supplier, but only just 2% of the supplier at tier 13 did not have the material, that disrupted forced production for weeks. And hence it could be critical to understand this. So you need to go very, very granular, even in procurement planning and forecasting. So when you forecast the procurement, it needs to have a visibility across this thing. So what is happening today is that with the use of technology, you are looking at a control tower which shows visibility right from the customer to the last vendor in your procurement cycle. And I think understanding this as a part of demand planning is very important, because you're planning your demand for procurement also. You're planning your demand for your customer also. And this could be a very critical point for you to start looking at. So most companies which are actually looking at planning today want to have an enterprise-wide planning, which is essentially you start with demand review, then you go to supply review, where within supply review, procurement planning is very, very important. Then you go for financial reconciliation, and then management reconciliation, and have a strategy. And I think we would be talking about all these things in the workshop, because no demand planning is complete about the end-to-end discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand. That's cool. Okay, why your expertise and your experience? Actually, I studied your YouTube channel of the Institute and also your LinkedIn profile, and I read the reviews and thanks from many participants of your workshops. And why your experience would be useful for the supply chain professionals and procurement professionals here in Ukraine and in Russian-speaking countries?
Primarily because I have a very strong understanding of demand planning, end-to-end supply chain procurement, and even supply chain analytics. And if you've seen my videos, you see that I don't restrict myself to planning, though that's my core expertise, but I also know logistics planning. And we talk about everything because I see that planning is the integrative factor, the most integrative factor, and you need to know about others to be a better planner. The second, I have done some consulting work in India to a very great extent, but even in Dubai, even in Singapore, even in some of the countries in Africa, some of the, I have done 1 or 2 projects even in Athens, that's Greece. So what gets me into it is that I have a very cross-functional understanding and I have a cross-country understanding of planning. And what I have found is that planning, the mistakes are common everywhere. It's the same mistakes. So that also gives me an idea to really do this workshop anywhere. We do a demand planning certification course, and Viktoriya will be surprised. We have students from all over the world online. And we just started post-pandemic, where we used to believe in physical courses, and suddenly we changed to this. We have from Dubai, you have from US, you have from Egypt, you have from Turkey, you have from Morocco, you have from Saudi Arabia. I think it is fabulous, and everybody feels this is, and within 6 months, this is the second batch that we are running. We also run a program called as R4. This is Resolve, Resilience, Return, and Reimagination for your supply chain. And same, the profile has been from all over the world. We just have 25 students with very diverse profile, and they are all senior supply chain professionals. They are almost head of the supply chain. What I have seen is that this cross-country understanding helps my workshop to be much better, because we can get examples from anywhere and appropriate example from anywhere.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I'm sure that when we study mistakes from across the globe and discuss with our colleagues, we really got like more holistic picture. And we see that we are not lonely in our
Yeah,
mistakes and that we all
right.
people, it's like human nature. Okay, can you please tell me one, I don't know, interesting personal fact about yourself? Something for you to be like not like a chairman of the institute, but also something interesting about you. What you like? Do you have any hobbies? Do you have a pet?
No, I don't have a pet. I like pets. In India, pets are on streets, and stray dogs also are my pets. We play with them, and I grew up in a village, and in my village, outside my house, there are so many stray dogs. My mother used to serve them food, and they were all like pets. And I had the buffaloes, and I had bulls, and I had cows, and I think I was very strong animal lover at those point of time. Moving to Bombay, we can't see them now. It's a concrete jungle in the whole process. But I'm very passionate about poverty. I'm very passionate about education as well as rural development in India. And if you see my LinkedIn posts, which are not supply chain, are essentially rural. And hence I love rural, regeneration. When I used to teach at Athens University of Business and Economics every year, I went to the local tourist sites and the famous one, but I went to the rural villages in Athens, around Athens, and understood their agri system, their orange farms, their olives farms, the existence of this thing. I wrote one article also in the local newspaper, which was translated in Greek. Similarly, I think my focus is nature, pet, domestic animals, and poverty and development of this thing. So I have always been on those sides of it. I used to play football and hockey. So I played for my state, both hockey and football, in my school days, and I was a very good athlete at those point of time. So, but those are very old memories, almost 20 years, 30 years before, that was what I used to do. And I read a lot. I read a lot of literature, so that's what.
Professional mainly, or something not non-fiction also, or you read more about supply chain, procurement, and management?
No, I read a lot about politics, geopolitics. I read some few novels in my own. I love my regional novels in Hindi because they are very much descriptive of how India has changed, how cities have grown, the dynamics of city. Then Paulo Coelho is my very good, I've read almost all of his books, and I read a lot of non-fiction also. So, and I don't choose a author, I just pick up and I just finish. If I like a book, I used to buy books at every airport. I moved around and I bought books, but there was no pattern in my this thing. Oh, I need to read him. I could pick up anything and I could read anything, but they're largely global. They could be To Be or Not to Be, Eric Fromm. That kind of books also excited me at one point of time. Now we don't travel for the last 6 months, so I have not read much, but I think I read one good book on the dragon on our doorstep. That is China on India's doorstep. So I think that's a very interesting story. This is a whole book. I bought it in Dubai when I was teaching in Dubai for a year. And I had just kept it. So I just bought it and I wanted to understand the outsider perspective of India and China rather than Indian or Chinese perspective of India and China.
Oh, I understand. Thank you. I actually love the topic of intercultural communication and interaction and how to be aware of the difficulties. What are the main characteristics and strengths that help people from India like you to be successful around the globe?
It's common across the globe. If you understand your subject well, you are sensitive to issues. you can have empathy for people, and you are hardworking and smart working. I think I believe that hard and smart has to go together.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can be successful and you can do anything you want. I was a professor 2 years back in business schools around the globe. I decided to start my own firm, and now I think it has grown very well. And I think what I realized was that if you are inclined to do something, you can create a reality. Today we are one of the best supply chain institution in the country, and we have a very strong footprint in Dubai. Very
Oh,
strong footprint
that's
in
great.
Dubai. We are,
I'm sure that that India is a very various, that many people live there from different like very intercultural, international international country by itself. I guess it makes you open to the world
yeah, we have
more.
100 languages.
You know,
So
like many countries, they are like mono country with only one, like, and
right.
India, I guess, so bright and vivid, and that's why.
India is diverse as in the world is. You know, it's a mini
Yeah.
world in that sense of the term. If I go every 200 kilometers, I have to speak another language. But yes, it's a binding. Most people know Hindi, which is our national language, so that binds us. And English is becoming same as Hindi. It's becoming
Mm-hmm.
very popular. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody studies in English now. So I think that's the smaller cities and bigger cities have these villages which are big, are in their vernaculars, but I think they are also now moving to understand English. So India is getting globalized, and India is local in its own terms. So it's a complete global
Yeah.
country that can be called as very different.
Yeah, because it's global within it. It's already global and diverse.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, two more questions, and I guess that's all. Question number one. Now in our country, and not in only now, there is already some economic crisis, yeah? And procurement departments and supply chain departments, so they have now time to show that they work great and they are really helping business, because when everything is good, not so many people about thinking too much about procurement and supply chain. When it works, then it works, yeah. Now
Right.
when it's not so good, they have a chance to show and to maybe change the process, maybe fine-tune something to make better planning and better interaction between with other departments. What can you recommend to professionals from supply chain, from procurement, what to do in the nearest several months from professional point of view and so-called promotion of the function within companies?
Right. It's a very right time for procurement and supply chain function now, primarily because businesses have realized that they can survive if you have a right procurement and right supply chain department and a good planning system. Because earlier in most countries, you must have seen it is sales driven, sales
Mm-hmm.
determines everything, and supply chain was serving the sales rather than serving the organization. There is a very strong realization that if you have a very proper alignment of supply chain within demand to procurement and alignment of this to the other businesses, then your cost to serve can be very low and can be brought down to, it can become more resilient because you see the visibility of products across the supply chain, you know what lies where, and hence you can actually, even during business continuity program, you can create a fast movement of goods. Suppose in a place A, which is close to place B, which requires more material, but if you don't have visibility, then you will go to the factory, get produced, or you go to destination where you know. But here, if you can invest into supply chain technology, you can have better planning, you can see what schedules lies where, you can plan better, reduce the impact of pandemics and any disruption. So that's two. Third, they need to understand that it's going to be a difficult time to come. Economic recessions will have their own impact. Economic recessions bring with them you know, a lot of challenges of demand planning and supply chain alignment. Like for instance, people may be wanting cheaper products. They may be wanting value packs. The consumer frequency will change and get lowered. How do you factor all these into your planning so that you can actually serve the right customer? There are enough evidences of planning during economic recession, 2008-9 global recession. I think it would be quite similar to that. And how long will it last? That is another thing that you have to do a scenario planning. That's why I said the new skills would be your planning skills, your scenario planning skills, and ability to understand, you know, technology and newer technology in terms of data predictive analytics. Because, and how do you use this data to plan your particular organization will become very important in the future. Pandemic, wherever the incidences are high, you know, you need to understand that how long will the recession go, which are the sectors which are heavily affected. All these data are available anywhere in the government, and you will have to have this and make your own assessment of how things are. Value packs, you must have seen the value packs must be there, you know, changing. You must have seen e-commerce as a channel has emerged more stronger, and it will go on till the fear of pandemic goes on, and hence omni-channel approach to fulfillment will increase. Are we getting prepared for those things? Are we waiting for the normal to come back? There are two kinds of supply chain guys: one who are waiting for the last time to be back, and others who are preparing for the new normal. And new normal is here, and the impact of this will be enormous. And how do you predict this? By having scenarios. Even in scenarios, you should know what is the worst case scenario, what is the best case scenario, what is the mid case scenario. And you have to monitor. One of the fundamental learning from the pandemic is that everybody came together in a war room like of situation, discussed everything, and they became hyper-local in fulfilling demand in most affected pandemic areas. All over the world, this has been a story. This is a good learning. Can your supply, can your demand, can your sales, can your procurement, can your logistics, can your product development come together and work together? If they can come together and work together, not in silos, but in, you know, in more collaborative way, then you are providing a huge amount of resilience in its own. So your tactical planning and your long-term planning will have to marry each other. And your short-term, the slush season planning, as we call it as, has to see the changes, granular changes, and react very immediately. So the time of reaction is very high, and hence phygital, which is called a digital twin, both have to marry. A very strong IT framework has to come as a support for your this thing, which is largely driven by you know, IoT, blockchain, and data, and this can be planned over a period of time. Not necessarily you can impose anything, and depends upon the ability of the organization to assimilate or deploy technology. Two, train your people to know each other, train your people to work together. Let supply chain and sales work together. Let supply chain be encompass procurement. Procurement should not be away from supply chain. Then you can happen, you know, manufacturing is away from supply chain. They will produce big size of tire utilizing the whole rubber. They will not they produce what the market needs. You need to know what market needs, and you have to visualize what your market needs.
That's, I understand. Thank you.
Take care and be safe. Bye.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.